Okay, let's look at the daily money-making setups on the S&P E-mini for June 27th here using the 1500 tick bar chart. If you're not familiar with this screen, it's from processtrading.com and the right edge trading system. It has the price bars up here, the white price bars here in particular are price cycle bars. If you wonder what a price cycle is, you can go over to processtrading.com and it describes the cycles. But basically, there's only one cycle. It's either buy low, sell high, or sell high, buy low. It's a cycle. And if it's not in one of those cycles, then it's in an accumulation. We know it's in a cycle because of our discretionary indicators down here. First of all, there's the Intergy, which stands for internal energy. And then there's the sentiment oscillator, which tells us about the impulse trading, and then the conviction of the community of traders. And then the short-term trend oscillator that helps us understand the short-term trend and the volatility of that trend. Part of the system has the process trading VWAP here, which acts as part of a trend trading mechanism, which we'll see in a second here, and also support and resistance, and also a regression to the mean line. Now, if you're familiar with the process trading right edge system, you know that the process trading VWAP serves as a regression to the mean line, and the price regresses back to this mean line from the contraband area. And that is this line right here. There's a contrarian band above and below the process trading VWAP. You don't see the bottom one right now. It's out of the screen. So on the top one, when price gets to it or over it, it will regress to the mean. Now here we see a situation from this morning, and you can see that roughly this is where the day started out here, and price went above the contrarian band here. So we're expecting some regression. Well, yes, you have a timing alert dot. You have a small regression here. It goes back up above the VWAP or the contraband, has a minor regression, goes back up, and then it starts regressing again. Now, one of the main things you want to do is you want to follow these white price cycle bars and use them to begin your interpretation of what is happening with price and why it's happening and when it's happening. Then you'll know what to do about it. So right here we see two price cycle bars, and price had gone up, and this appears to be selling at the top. We see that because of the VWAP here, it's in an uptrend because the VWAP is yellow. It's extended because it's green, and even back here, when you have a blue segment within the yellow, that means that it is overextended. Now, within the internal energy, the green indicates demand, the red indicates supply, and then there's a couple of other color variations here. The magenta within the green represents buying, and it represents likely up pressure to the demand. The gray represents weakness, and the white down here represents even another factor of weakness, so that price will either keep descending or it's approximately at the end of its descent. Well, we see right here that this low just went laterally. So we take it that that is the end of the selling right there. And we see the conviction of the trading community because the sentiment or the conviction is above the upper bound of the oscillator, a very strong sentiment to take price up. And you can see that how it hugs and stays over the upper bound here for a long time. Not until this area does the conviction start to drop below the upper bound of the oscillator. So when we get a situation like this, where this could represent selling at the top, and we have the momentum coming down fairly dramatically all the way to the bottom of the oscillator, so it has all that effort but not much result in price, we know that prices in the buying community is strong to the demand side. Where we get our first real indication of what's going on is over here when price reached its apex and it's above the contrarian band. It's got a timing alert dot, and now you have a price cycle bar here that just drops below the stop exit line, which isn't significant in itself because you had these over here. This could be just a pullback, or it could even be accumulation to take prices higher. But the difference being now the continuation happens with price as it continues down and goes further from the contrarian band. Over here, it came down below it, slightly went back above it, it whipsawed around it. Over here, it came below it, and now is starting to descend further. And this right here is where we get our true indication of prices in a decline, because here's the price cycle bars. This truly represents selling at the top. Price had descended below the contrarian band. Here is selling at the top. We know that now because of these bars over here. Price continues to drop down. When we look at our discretionary indicators, we see that here's demand for the price cycle, but now it's starting to weaken. And over here, by this time, supply is starting to come in. Clear back over here, we see that momentum is cutting down through the oscillator and heading towards the lower bound, as well as the angle of the trading community, or the sentiment, now has come down through the upper bound and angled down towards the bottom. And we know the nature of price and of the sentiment oscillator is to go from highs to lows to highs to lows in repeating cycles. So right here is our first indication. It's the white bars. These are the price cycle bars. They are the ones that you want to look at to be following what's the course of action. It is at this time right here that this is just a little residual energy, a couple of green bars, a little residual energy from all that up move. And then we get another white bar. So anywhere right in here, this is right where you want to get in to a short and take price to the downside. So let's move this over a little bit. And we see as we got in here, price comes down here, and then it goes through an accumulation phase right here. And then it drops down, and it drops down to this point here. So an accumulation, then more selling, more selling, more selling. And then finally over here, this represents buying. Now, buying at the bottom, how do we know that? Well, for one thing, in our supply side, we had blue bars here. Just like the magenta meant that price would likely go up in the demand side, the blue bars represent buying within the supply side of the histogram. So that we know not only is this supply cycle weak, but it is actually partially determined by buying. That's right up here. So this isn't enough to have us go long yet, but when we get over to this point here, we have a doji, a price cycle bar, a small one right at the bottom, and then we have a timing alert dot with trend alert dots, and we have price going above the stop exit line. So this is where we know to get in to the up cycle. So it wasn't a down cycle, and this was an accumulation phase. Then it continued the down cycle. Although in this accumulation phase, when you're looking at the energy, there is demand there. So the cycle would actually go above that. That would look like part of the demand cycle. And then you would take that up to here. Now, at this price cycle bar, is this buying at the top, selling at the bottom? What is it? Well, we look down at the energy, and we see that the energy is still strong. This is the bar associated with that price cycle bar. And this bar is relatively high within the demand side. Also, the sentiment, the trading community, is still strongly trending upwards. And we see that the trend here, although the volatility has dropped, because we see the width of the oscillator, the short-term trend oscillator here, it's narrowed considerably. So the volatility is dropping, meaning there's going to be either less participants, or the participants are less taking less risk, but it is still to the upside, and we can see that within the energy, which goes up to this apex right here on the demand side. And we saw the last hurrah right here of the buyers coming in. This actually would represent selling at the top. And then we again have a price cycle bar dropping below the stop exit line and continuing down. When we see this bar here, that's the real evidence. We know that this was selling at the top. All by itself, the only way that we would determine this bar is selling at the top is because momentum is crossing down through the upper bound, and it's also crossing down through the sentiment line here. So that usually represents selling at the top, as well as the short-term trend oscillator is diving down below the upper bound. But that would have been a very hard read until we get to this point here. At this point here, this is another price cycle bar that confirms that this was selling at the top. And by the time you get over here, the momentum is all the way to the bottom, and the short-term trend cycle is clear to the pullback line and about to cross through it. So here's your high probability trade to get in right here, and you would take that down to the short side. So let's go over here. Now we've taken it to the short side. Here it breaks support and resistance. So this was in an uptrend. Now it breaks support. You can see here's a price cycle bar breaking support. So this is another indication that you're on the correct side of your trade. You're in the short trade. It really never goes higher than that. And this represents more selling, and this represents more selling. Again, what we're doing is we're reading the price cycle bars to determine what do all of the other bars mean. So price continues down until it gets to this point here. At this point here, it is at the contrarian line to the downside. And we know that it's at the contrarian point, that's where price tends to regress back to the mean. And we can see it right here. It came in right here and started to regress back towards the mean. So let's move this over a little bit. So it's regressing towards the mean, but it never got there. And here we have selling at the top again. So remember, that's what's going to happen with these price cycle bars. You're either going to have selling at the top, buying at the bottom. You're going to have a pullback, or there's going to be an accumulation phase. This is more like an accumulation phase right here, but this shows that there's a selling at the top. As a matter of fact, you want to pay attention to when it's selling at the top, because that holds true not only for this little down shift here in price, but look, price never got back up there again. It never got back up there. So that even as it gets down close to the contrarian trade, and yes, it tries to go back towards the mean, there's just not enough energy to do it. And then it goes to the bottom again, back to the contrarian line, tries to get up again. There's not enough energy to take it up, goes down, and you can just see it bouncing like that, and it bounces like that because everybody knows that at this point, the contrarian trades, this is a point at which, in some degree, you could say it's overextended or overbought. That's not a good way to truly look at it. But it is a point that's a naturally reoccurring episodic adventure where price will bounce off of that and regress back to the mean. And that's what you're seeing here. It goes down to the contrarian line, bounces, go down to the contrarian line, bounces, contrarian line, bounces, contrarian line, bounces. So this is a place that is almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, both by the trader community and by those manipulating the market. So then we're now closing in. This is the 3 o'clock time frame, and when we get over to here, we're at the 3:30 time frame. So we see, again, we're looking at the price cycle bars. Here's the cycle bar going below the stop exit line. Here we have 2 price cycle bars. That confirms that this was selling at the top. This bar was selling at the top. When we look down at our indicator, sure enough, we see that price has gone through the sentiment line. Momentum has gone through the sentiment line, heading towards the bottom. This is where we would go short in our trade. And you could take that trade down to this point here. At this point here, you're below the contrarian line, and you have your timing alert dot. This is buying at the bottom. So we can actually see that when we draw it. Here's the bottom. We see now that the sentiment line is bottomed out down here. We had a small push here with a positive bar. Then we had a timing alert dot, and then we had a large bar that goes up above the stop exit line, and we're off to the races as we try to regress back to the mean. But we know it's not going to regress back to the mean because it's a strong day to the downside. Okay, so lastly, for the price cycles anyway, over here you can see that same situation. Here we have selling at the top. Nothing we can do with that right now. We have trend alert dots that said a trend can be coming up. These trend alert dots are foretelling or prognosticating this trend right here. We have selling at the top. Again, we look down. We see that momentum is crossing through the sentiment line, but it's these 2 bars here that confirm that was selling at the top. So this is where we put on our high probability trade. Now, all these price cycles trades are discretionary trades. So as one last thing, let's go back and look at some of the other trades that were possible today, which would be trend trades. Okay, real quick, here's where the market opened here, And remember how a trend trade works. As long as the process trading VWAP is yellow, you can take a trend trade according to the trade management system to the long side, as long as you have a timing alert dot, that's this blue dot right here, below the price bar. When you have that below the price bar, then you look to the high of whatever that was on that price bar. In this case, it is 27.3150. So we get in 2 points above that. So we would get in at 21.3350. And that would get us in right here, right on this bar right here. Now, you can see all you would have to do is take that trend. It would have been at 943. You take that trend right there, and you just ride it. You just ride it up till the top of the trend. So 27.33, you go up to the high of this is 27.48. That's 15 points. 15 points. And you had other trend alert dots, but I was just showing you how that one worked. Okay, so that was the high of the day. Now let's go over it. Now we're still in an uptrend according to the VWAP here. And right here, the VWAP turns gray. So that says we're in a downtrend. So it's just the opposite. To take a trend trade, you can take a trend trade if the VWAP is gray and you have a timing alert dot above the price bar. When you have the VWAP gray, the timing alert dot, that's this blue dot here, and you look to the low of the price bar, in this case it was 27.50, and you get in 2 points below that. So you would get in at 27.2550. And let me see where that's going to get us in right here. And the whole idea of these trend trades is that you're going to buy into strength and sell into weakness. And clearly, you can see the weakness here. And here is your first opportunity to do the trend trade according to the right edge system and the trade management rules. You get in there, and again, you're getting in at 25.50, which would take you right there. And if you took it down to here, that the low of that is 15.75. So 4 3/4 points, almost 5 points, getting in right there on a trend trade. And the trend trade has you selling into weakness when prices are going down and buying into strength when prices are going up. So we looked at the contrarian trades, like right here. We looked at discretionary trades, which are any of the price cycle trades, and we looked at trend trades. All good setups today. All you need is some volatility, and if you have no volatility, then both the price cycles and the VWAP and the trend will keep, and the trade management rules will keep you out of losing trades. So that's it for today, and there will be another video tomorrow. If you want, hit the subscribe button and go over to processtrading.com, and you can see how the whole system works. So hope all your trading goes well.